Welcome to another episode of Relocation Leader. I'm your host, Zach Turbis, and we're doing something a little different today because we're in the midst of TAS and GPA season here at NEI. We are releasing a special throwback performance from Dr. Charlie Cartwright on, you guessed it, leadership. Hope you enjoy.
Leadership, you, me, we. What's it about? So again, I'm Dr. Charlie Cartwright. If you're on LinkedIn, please connect with me. There may be questions that you have after today's content, maybe tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. I'm always available. Connect with me, shoot me a question, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So I know we're all busy. And we're so busy with business, with life, with family. I just want you to take a few minutes this afternoon and really reflect, because this is an important part of leadership, and I believe all leaders need to have this self-reflection in order to be great leaders. Every single person in this room, I believe, woke up with 3 gifts this morning. 3 gifts you woke up with. Matter of fact, you just didn't wake up with them this morning, you wake up with them every morning. What are those 3 gifts? Who can tell me what the first 2 are? Your eyes, 100%. You open your eyes is such a great gift. You know, statistically, we take in 92% of the information about our exterior world through our eyes. So it's a big, big deal that we have our sight. What's that big present? What's that big present that we open up? Life. The precious present. I like to call it the precious present. Because it's right now. This is really all we have. This is all we know. This is all we're guaranteed is right now. The precious present. And sometimes you think, I'm going to do this tomorrow, or this is going to happen tomorrow. But if you really think about it, tomorrow never comes. Because whenever you're awake, it's always today, isn't it? It's never tomorrow. There's only 2 things I believe that are fair in life. One thing they're going to talk about on Sunday, and Sunday's coming, so I'm not going to talk about that. But the other piece of it is this. We all get 24 hours in a day. Every single person. No matter who you are, we all get 24. No matter what country, what religion, what gender, you get 24 hours in a day. That's true for Jeff Bezos. Going to be the first trillionaire, I believe. Warren Buffett. You can't buy any of yours. You can't have any of his. Ronaldo, 24 hours. Oprah, 24 hours. J.K. Rowling, 24 hours. So the difference is what we do with the 24 hours we're given. It makes all the difference in the world. So this hourglass represents your life. The sand in the bottom, that's your history. That's your past. The sand in the neck, that's the precious present. But here's the reality. There's not a single person in this room that knows how much sand they have left in the top of the glass. No one knows. If you knew that this was your last afternoon, I bet your schedule would change. If you knew this was your last week on this planet, I bet your conversations would change. We have to live every day as if it's our last, because you know what? Someday it will be. Someday it will be. So here's a question I have. I've been to the website. I know what you do. I don't want to be like, man, the speaker didn't know it. He didn't even go to the waiting. And he asked a question about what do we do for a living? What business are you in? I just want to hear it in your words. What business are you in? Man, that's a tribute to your leadership. It's 100% correct. You're the first group that's ever got that answer right off the bat. It's true, you're in the people business. And I love this quote that I'll get here in a little bit, but it's so important. It's all about people. And we're talking about people, that's culture, right? What is a great definition of culture? You're in the people business, but what is a great definition of company culture? family, how you treat people, ethics. Those are all correct answers. My mentor said this. He said, culture is to a company as character is to an individual. Your culture is a mirror image of your leadership. And it sounds like you have a really great thing going right now. I'm such a huge researcher. I'm a research nerd. I'm one of these guys that when I can't sleep at night, I get up and do research. And so this particular night, I couldn't sleep. I got up and I pulled up Google. And what was I going to learn in life? What was I going to try to figure out? But the thought occurred to me that as many times as I'd use this search engine, I'd never Google. So I Googled them. And I got to their homepage. And it was about what I expected. But I found this little icon, and it said 10 things we know to be true. I clicked on it, and it was a list of 10 things. And it was really, really good. But when I got to number 10, it actually blew me away. Couldn't believe it. I never read it anywhere. And I just remember pushing myself back away from the desk, and I just had to ponder that for a little while. And what was number 10? Great's just not good enough. It's a starting point. So many people talk about greatness. Hey, we want to have a great culture. We want to have great service. Matter of fact, there's a book out there, New York Times bestseller, Good to Great. People talk about good being the enemy of great. But no one in my life has ever told me that great's just not good enough. But that's what Google believes. Why is that? You know what? It's because they're the best in the world at what they do. And if you want to be the best in the world, if you want to be world class, great's just not good enough. And if you want to be world class and have a world class culture, a 99.9% commitment won't get it done. It will not get it done. Being world class is real simple. It's a yes or no answer. It's yes, we do, or no, we do not. And I believe in this organization, the answer is a resounding yes, 100%. So I've got a question, and this question requires everyone to stand up. This is the only time I'm going to ask you to exercise. Now, I'm going to preface this question by stating that it encompasses your entire work history, not necessarily your current job, because I don't want to get anyone in trouble. This is a sit down if question. I'd like you to sit down if you've ever had a boss, a manager, a leader that was rude. I think they're lying. Thanks for participating. Go ahead and sit down. But you can see there's a huge opportunity here. Most of the people have had that unpleasant experience of having a rude boss, a rude leader. I used to have this 3x5 card. I kept it in my pocket. And when I first started my speaking career, I would pull it out and I would set it there, and I had 5 questions. And I used it as an icebreaker. And my whole goal was to, at the end of the 5 questions, to have everyone in the room seated. This one day I was in a power plant someplace in Missouri. I'll keep the name to myself to protect the innocent. But I was at this power plant someplace in Missouri, and there were 80 supervisors in the room. And I was like, man, I've been doing this for long enough. I don't need to recite that from a card. I'll just recite it from memory. So the question I just asked you used to be number 5. I asked it first, and all 80 supervisors sat down. Boom. The only person still standing in the back of the room was a plant manager. And his face got as red as the Husker colors. Now, to make matters worse, I started laughing uncontrollably. I didn't anticipate that. I didn't think that was going to happen. And the more I laughed, the madder he was getting. And I was thinking to myself, man, I got to pull this together. Otherwise, I'm going to get kicked out of the room before I get to deliver my message. It's a huge thing. So here's the thing about that. We have meetings like this, and strategies talked about, and plans are made, and so many things happen. But Peter Drucker said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And so if we have a culture where there is some of that bad talk, some of that rude behavior by leaders, it really undermines any strategy that we could conceive. So it's important that we all keep that in mind. We've had those negative experiences. Some of you are very fortunate that you've never had a rude boss. That's a blessing, because most of us have been on the receiving end of that behavior, and it's just not a lot of fun. So I've got this little bit of soil here. And imagine we're going to fill this screen, we're going to fill this space with this soil. And we're going to grow something. We're going to plant some seeds in that soil. Tell me, what's going to grow in this soil? What can we plant in that soil? Trees, vegetables, food, flowers. I'm in Nebraska. You mean no one said corn? All over the country, first thing people say is corn. It's one of the first things, but not in Nebraska. Those are all accurate answers. But the most correct answer is whatever we plant, that's going to grow. Matter of fact, if we just had this pile of soil sitting in any nondescript place, and we came back a year later and we didn't plant anything, you know what? Somehow weeds will have found their way. There'd be dandelions growing in there, right? And it's really a metaphor for culture, our company culture. Whatever we plant in that culture is what's going to come up. And if we leave it unattended, even for a little bit, weeds or bad behaviors are going to sprout up. So I really like to look at Gallup's research, another home state organization. They put out this poll on an annual basis, the American workforce. They want to know what the engagement level is for American workers. And this represents about 100 million full-time employees in this country. And what it states is that only 33%, or what Gallup terms as engaged employees. What does engagement even mean? What's a good definition? Can anyone give me a good definition of what employee engagement is? Involved, caring, supportive of the company culture. Pardon me? Devotion. 100%, those are right. And I think Mitch's comment sums it all up. It's really a measure of how much employees care. Caring employees are all in. They're devoted. They're passionate. How much they care about their job. How much they care about their coworkers. How much they care about their service partners. How much they care about the clients they serve. The community they represent. Only 33% are really passionate. 51% are not engaged. What does this mean? They're coming in to work, putting in time, but not energy and passion. Just basically going through the motion, and then at the end of the week, where's my check? Then there's 16% that are actively disengaged. So these people aren't just unhappy at work, they're busy acting out that unhappiness, deliberately hurting the organizations that they represent. Gallup estimates that this costs our economy $500 billion on an annual basis. So I put an illustration together to illustrate what does $500 billion look like. So if we strung $500 billion $1 bills together, how far do you think it would stretch? To the moon? 5 times around the world. See, I'm getting better guesses in Nebraska. I was in Iowa and someone actually told me 5 football fields. I was like, did you say 5 football fields? You know, we went bowling that night and that person never lived it down. How could you say 5 football fields? So you're 100% correct, though. It would stretch all the way to the moon. It'd wrap around the moon and come back to Earth. And then it'd do that another 99 times. That's what active disengagement is costing this country. So my question is this: how do we get here? I mean, how do we get here? Tell me about anyone you've ever known, seen, or heard about. How do they feel when they get a new job? Excited, thrilled, fired up. I got that job. So how do we go from I got that job to this? Something had to have happened at work. According to the Sirota Group, there's an 85% drop-off in employee morale during the first 6 months of employment. We go from I got that job, Honeymoon's over. This place sucks. 6 months for that evolution. Gallup says it's a leadership issue. It's a real leadership challenge in this country. How do we keep our people engaged once they're in? Because when we hire them, they're fired up, they're all in. So how do we go from keeping them in that state and not losing them to this state? Sometimes, though, believe it or not, people will argue with me about this. No, Dr. Charlie, you don't understand. See, we don't have access to the best employees here. We're in a rural location, and we just don't have the talent pool that they have in the big city, because if we had better employees, we'd have more engagement. Then I go to a big city, and they say, you know what, we're in a big city. People don't have the same work ethics they do in those rural communities. You know, if we had the rural workers, we'd really have a higher engaged workforce, but I just don't believe that's the case. This has been my life experience, and I believe pretty much everyone in the room has had a similar life experience. Think about this. Through your life, there's 5% of the people in your life always been for you. 100%. 5%. When I was growing up, my grandmother was my entire 5%. I could do no wrong in that woman's eyes. I could literally set the Sunday paper on fire. On fire, on the kitchen, on the living room coffee table, they had this marble cover, and it scorched that. My grandfather was not happy. You know what my grandmother said to him? Don't you touch that boy. I love going to grandma's house. I could play with matches, stay up late, eat ice cream, drink soda as much as I want. That was my grandmother. Great woman, great woman. Then there's another 5% of the people that are in your life, they're always against you. Doesn't no matter what you do. These are the people that you can walk up to them on a daily basis and give them a crisp $100 bill, and as soon as you walk away, they're clucking. But what about the other 90%? You know what? They haven't made up their mind yet. And they're going to make up their mind based on how we treat them. So we got another opportunity here, and that opportunity is a 95% opportunity for success. The other 5% is part of life. It's got to take it on the chin. Who can give me a good definition of leadership? Servant leadership. That is an awesome definition. Man, you got to start off strong. Boom. No warm-up. Servant leadership. I'm on the ropes already. Anyone top that? Exemplary leadership. Inspiring. Those are all great. And I love this quote from Steve Jobs, because there's a big difference between management and leadership. Huge difference. I'm an avid reader, and anytime I'm in a city and I have time and they have a Barnes & Noble, I will go to Barnes & Noble and buy a book. I'm like a kid in a candy store. I come out 2 or 3 books every time. My wife's like, what are you doing with all these books? I'm reading them. Well, take some of them back. Get them out of here. It looks messy. But if you go to Barnes & Noble and you look for the leadership section, you won't find it. Because all the leadership books, guess what? It says management. You see, Barnes & Noble even has it mixed up. They think management and leadership are synonyms, and they're very different. Steve Jobs said this. He said, management is about convincing people to do things they don't want to do. He said, leadership is about inspiring people to accomplish things they never thought they could. Huge difference. And that's what a servant leader does. Inspires people to accomplish things they never thought they could. That's a completely different energy level, completely different dynamic. What is the number one thing that employees want from a leader? Number one thing, according to Towers Watson, every employee seeks in their leadership. Praise, I heard respect, care, feedback. Those are all true. Character. Number one is trustworthiness. They want to have a leader they can trust. I have this people success formula that I designed. It's got all these, it's this equation. It's kind of cool looking. And there are 9 elements bracketed by 1. And the element on the outside is a multiplier. And that element is T, and it stands for trust. If we don't have trust, it cancels everything out. inside. So we've got to really guard that passionately. We've got to be trustworthy with our people. Have to be. That all starts with communication, how we communicate with our people. Think about, there's two ways that we motivate our people. There's two ways that we get them to do things. By our actions, our behaviors, and by the words we say. Those are our tools, our actions and our words. That's it. So there's three primary elements of communication. The words we say, our body language, and the tone that we say it in. Who could tell me what the largest piece of communication is out of those three pieces? Body language, 100% correct. 55% body language, 38% tone of voice, and only 7% are the words we say. So here's the thing. That 93% can be so loud that it drowns out the words we say. People can be deaf to our message if our behavior, if our body language, if our tone is not correct. Our words can be perfect, but if our body language is not, people are going to be deaf to the message. We can't give people that look. You know that look when you come to your boss and they're like, what do you want? We just can't give them that look. There's a Chinese proverb that says, a man without a smiling face must not own a shop. So true. People are not going to listen to us. All they can see is, man, he's angry at me. What's going on? Our body language has to be correct. So many ways. The way we express our ideas has to be correct. Maya Angelou said this many years ago. She says, people might not remember what you said, might not remember what happened, might not remember what you did, but they'll always remember the way you made them feel. And so as leaders, we've got to make people feel worthy, feel appreciated. This is something I had to learn in my life. I grew up in a very dysfunctional household, and it was really a black and white household, meaning things were right or they were wrong. There were no two ways about it. And that's true in certain instances, but in the world and business, there's a lot of gray area. Well, what should I do in this situation? Well, that depends. And that's where we use our experience and wisdom. And so we've got to remember when we're talking with our people, when we're going through an issue, there can be two truths. Two truths are possible. And I love using this example with the thermostat. I've got 78 degrees on this thermostat here. And there's certain people in the room, if I put this temperature at 78 degrees, they'd be like, perfect. I am good, Dr. Charlie. I love it warm. And there are other people who think, what are you doing? You're a psycho. Get it cooler in here, right? One temperature, two truths. So when we're speaking with our people, we're speaking with our team, keep in mind that there can be two truths, and it's so important to get their point of view on matters. Do you know there's a lot of toxic talk in the workplace? A lot of toxic talk. I hear it all the time. Yeah, Dr. Charlie, it's a tough business. This is transportation. This is construction. This is manufacturing. This is food production. But here's the thing. If someone snuck in the back of the room right now and leaked radioactive gas into this room, we'd all get sick. And that's what happens when we let toxic talk become a part of our culture. It makes everyone sick in the end. Sometimes I'll hear leaders tell me this, well, that's not what I meant. She took it the wrong way. It's not true. It's not true. The meaning of our communication is always the response that we get. So when we get a response that we didn't necessarily like, that's what it meant to them. It doesn't matter what we meant to say, that's what it meant to them, meaning we have to recalibrate it. We have to recalibrate our message. One of the techniques in doing this is using consistent intensity. Consistent intensity is so important. I had to learn this in my personal life. And what I mean by consistent intensity is this. When we get after people, because sometimes we have to get after people. But when they do the right thing, do we come at them with the same level of intensity as we do when they do the wrong thing? I'm going to get a little quick drink here. It's those hot lights. When my kids were growing up, we lived on the Missouri side in the Kansas City area. And the Missouri public schools to this day are in really bad shape. They lost their accreditation. And our oldest daughter was getting ready to go in. She was actually in middle school. And she was complaining about fights that they had at the school. There seemed like there was a fight every day. So there was a big meeting with the Parent-Teacher Association, the superintendent, and his staff. And we were talking about our concerns, and at some point, the assistant superintendent stood up and said, well, we can't guarantee the safety of your children. I looked at my wife and said, let's go. We left. 30 days later, we sold our house. We moved to the Kansas side. We're going to get our kids in good schools, safe schools, accredited schools. Now, our kids are in this Montessori school, and it's a very good school, but the problem is Montessori only goes up to the 6th grade. Middle school and beyond, we had to come up with a different opportunity. So I was a little concerned when now my kids moved to the Kansas side and they're going to go to traditional curriculum, meaning they were going to get an A, B, C, D, or an F grade, where Montessori is only 2 grades. S, you're showing strength, or P, you're progressing. No one's failing. So I was a little worried about this. So the first quarter rolls around, comes to an end, and we get the grade cards. All 3 of my daughters march in, straight A's. Not one B. I was so proud. That's how we do it. Straight A's. Then my son came in the room. You know where this is going. So how'd it go, son? He said, oh, Dad, not too bad. I only got 2 D's. Come here. I get this kid's grade card, and I'm looking at it. The only A that he had was in gym class. He had 5 C's and 2 D's, and I hit the roof. There's probably still a hole in that ceiling. And I just laid into him. I let him have it. And I guess my daughters had never seen me speak to someone that way because they were mouth wide open. And I still remember the look on my wife's face. She's just standing over there going. So I let him have it. I dismissed him. I'm talking to my wife. I said, no, he needs to understand he's got my last name. That's not how we roll. You know what I mean? I took him through the civil rights movement. Your great aunt marched with Dr. Martin Luther King, and you're disrespecting. He hadn't even heard of the civil rights movement. He had no idea what I was talking about. He just knew that Dad was not happy. So now I'm on a mission. I'm going to make sure this kid gets his grades up. So when I was in town, I come home from work. My first stop was his bedroom. Hey, Val, what's going on? Not much, Dad. Got your homework done yet? No, not yet. Of course you don't. Get off the Xbox. Get the books. Get the books. Every day I stayed on him. Second quarter comes around. How do you think his grades were? Yes, worse. Much to my chagrin. Now I have to talk to my wife about it. So we're driving down the road, and I look over at her, and I say, you know, this negative reinforcement's not working out too well with Val. She said, you think? You teach this stuff, don't you? That hurt. That hurt. So I was like, okay, I know what I had to do. So we get home. I go to my son's room, and I said, hey, come in here. Listen, I owe you an apology, man. I know I got after you about your grades. I embarrassed you in front of your sisters. No, Dad, I'm just dumb. All my sisters are smart. I'm just dumb. No, you're not dumb. Yes, I am. I'm dumb. I said, listen, you can watch a YouTube video twice and come in the living room and sing the whole song to me. Most people can't do that. They can't? No, means you're smart. So I tried to encourage him. Just try to encourage him. So third quarter comes around. He had straight C's, but no D's and F's. I celebrated. I bought pizza that night. So he was in 5th grade at that time. So he graduated high school about a year ago, graduated with a 3.85. Thank you. Same kid, different message from his dad, using consistent intensity. Our people will rise or fall based on our level of expectation for them. Huge thing.
Thank you guys for watching another episode of Relocation Leader. I do hope you enjoyed Dr. Charlie Cartwright's talk on leadership. You can find the full version at NEI All-Access at neirelo.com. Thanks.